The date was August 9th, 1986. The location was Knebworth Park, a vast green expanse in Hertfordshire, England. By sundown, it was packed with over 120,000 people. The air was thick with the scent of summer, the humid heat of a long day, and the buzzing anticipation of a crowd waiting for their heroes to appear. The roar of the audience was a physical force, a tidal wave of sound that seemed to shake the very ground. At the center of it all stood a stage that was nothing short of a fortress, a symbol of a band at the absolute peak of their power. This was the final stop on Queen's Magic Tour, a triumphant victory lap that had seen them play to millions across Europe. What no one in that massive screaming crowd knew was that they weren't just witnessing another concert. They were about to become part of a moment in history that would, in time, be recognized as Freddie Mercury's last stand, his final, heroic, and profound farewell to the stage. The emotional hook here is not about a slow decline, but about an abrupt and powerful ending. The value promise is to reveal the unseen, unheard story behind that glorious spectacle. A story of the man who, already battling a silent enemy, chose to leave on the most magnificent high imaginable.
Backstage, the atmosphere was a mix of electric excitement and a subtle, unspoken tension. The band, Brian May, Roger Taylor, and John Deacon, moved with the practiced ease of seasoned veterans. But a sense of finality hung in the air, a premonition that was more a feeling than a fact. For years, the punishing schedule of touring had worn on them, and the band had collectively decided this would likely be their last major tour. They were all exhausted, but for Freddie, the exhaustion was different. His energy, once limitless, now felt like a precious commodity. There had been whispers, both from within the band's circle and from without. Freddie had been quieter than usual during the tour, and while his performance was flawless, the effort it took seemed immense. Brian May, in later interviews, would recall the almost telepathic understanding between them. They would look at each other on stage, and without words, they knew something was ending. This wasn't just the end of a tour, it felt like the end of an era. Freddie, however, was a master of his craft, and he was determined to be a professional until the very end. Before the show, he was in his dressing room, a private space of quiet focus. He was preparing not just his voice, but his persona. He was no longer just Farouk Bulsara. He was Freddie Mercury, the god of rock, a larger-than-life figure who commanded stadiums. He was putting on his armor.
The moment the band walked onto the stage, the crowd's energy became a single, pulsating roar. They opened with the powerful anthem, One Vision, a song that captured the unifying spirit of the moment. Freddie, dressed in his now legendary yellow jacket and white trousers, exploded onto the stage. He moved like a bolt of lightning, his every step a statement, his every gesture a command. The man who had been quiet backstage was now a hurricane of charisma. He owned that stage, and he owned every single person in that audience. His voice, still a staggering instrument of power and range, soared over the field. He led the crowd through hit after hit, a relentless barrage of anthems that had defined a generation. Bohemian Rhapsody, Radio Gaga, a kind of magic.
Each song was a communal experience, a conversation between the band and 120,000 friends. But if you looked closely, you could see the cost. Between songs, when the applause was at its peak, Freddie would take a moment. He would wipe his brow and take a breath that seemed a little too deep, a little too labored. He reflashed his signature grin, but you could see the effort in his eyes. He was giving everything he had, and the physical toll was immense. He was fighting. He was battling a body that was starting to betray him, all to keep a promise to his fans that he would never let them down.
The crowd, lost in the euphoric moment, didn't see the silent struggle. They saw only the showman, the flamboyant rock star who could bend reality with a flick of his wrist. They saw the legend, and he, in turn, fed off their energy, drawing strength from their love and using it to push through the pain. The setlist was a masterclass in musical storytelling. He sang Love of My Life to the adoring crowd, his voice raw with emotion. He led them through a call and response during a kind of magic that stretched on for minutes, his effortless control over the masses on full display. This was his final canvas, and he was painting a masterpiece. He was leaving nothing on the table. He was draining every last drop of his talent and energy, knowing in his heart that he would never get to do this again. Then came the climax. The main set ended with the epic, unifying "We Are the Champions." The song felt more poignant than ever before, a collective cry of victory and defiance. The band left the stage, but the crowd wasn't going anywhere. The roar for an encore was deafening, a desperate plea for more. They knew the show had to end, but they didn't want it to. And then Freddie returned. But this time, he wasn't wearing his iconic yellow jacket. He was wearing an elaborate, regal-looking crown and a flowing red velvet cape, a theatrical flourish that had become a staple of his shows. It was a symbolic gesture, a final act of showmanship. He was embracing his role not as a rock star, but as the king of rock and roll. The band performed Tutti Frutti and Crazy Little Thing Called Love, and then came the finale. As the band played a simple, majestic, recorded version of God Save the Queen, Freddie stood on the stage, the crown on his head and the cape wrapped around his shoulders. He was alone. The music swelled, and he took a slow walk across the stage, a final, regal procession. He looked out at the vast sea of people, and with his arm raised in a triumphant wave, he took a final, long, lingering bow. He wasn't just thanking them. He was saying goodbye. It was a silent, powerful, and deeply emotional farewell that most people didn't understand until years later.
He then walked off the stage and into the darkness. He never returned. He never performed with Queen again. In the months and years that followed, the band went into a period of hiatus. There were no more tours. The public was confused, but the band knew. The silence after Knebworth was a conscious decision, a respectful period to honor the moment. Brian May later said there was an unspoken agreement. They all knew, after that show, that the touring chapter of their lives had closed. The tragedy of Freddie's illness would become public in 1991, just a day before he passed away. In retrospect, that final performance at Knebworth became a heroic, magnificent bookend to his life. It wasn't the broken, tragic last performance that many stars have. It was a testament to his strength, his professionalism, and his enduring love for his fans. He left on his own terms, at the absolute height of his powers, delivering a performance so grand and so unforgettable that it would forever be remembered as the last roar of a lion who refused to go quietly.
The legacy of Knebworth is not just a concert, it's a testament to the power of courage in the indomitable human spirit. It reminds us that even when facing the end, a true artist gives everything they have. Freddie Mercury left his crown on that stage, and his final bow was a gift to the world, a promise of eternal magic. If this incredible story of Freddie Mercury's final performance moved you, please give this video a like and leave a comment below. What Queen song from the Magic Tour era holds the most personal meaning for you and why? Share your stories with us. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel and ring that notification bell for more untold stories about music's greatest legends.